Hi guys. Can y'all hear me? Let me get to my comments over here. I'm going to assume you can hear me, so please let me know if you can. Right away. But I think it's fine. Because I could hear through here, so I think it's probably good. So how is everybody? We have a nice day today, at least for now. We had rain yesterday. I had to do all that driving from Harrisburg back here this week. That was this morning. So I was glad it was sunny. It was actually really nice. And I got a phone call from colleague Ann Donovan, who, my southern colleague friend, who just called, and I saw it on the dash come up. So we chatted for, it had to be a good hour. All work related, of course. But she also does Social Security disability work. So if anyone's down south and wants a southerner, let me know. Let's see what we got here. Baxter Taylor's in the house. Looks like those two chicks, hello there, Judge, as a new member. Thank you. That's really sweet. And it's nice to see you in the house. I hope you're doing well. Baxter's in the house. Hey there, Baxter. Baxter's got a question or two. We're going to get to that. I see Earth One is in the house. Hello there, Earth One. Mike Page. Hi, Mike. Russ Dubrovich. Ah, yes, you can hear me, Russ? Okay, good. I don't know that we've met, Russ. Have we met? What does that green thing mean? Does that mean you're a member too? Oh, I think it does. That's nice, Russ. CG's in the house. Okay. So let's just start off, guys. Throw the questions in. I tend to get to them all. I don't think I've ever, unless someone comes in like and we're already 20 minutes over time and we're at the end and then they pop it in there. All right. Baxter says, the Social Security Administration's psychological evaluation showed borderline intellectual. Neuropsych test showed I'm intelligent. The core of cognitive decline and memory loss were universal. Okay. Let's see if there's actually a question attached to that, or if you just wanted to discuss it generally. Baxter continues to say, should I emphasize that as a bad day versus a good day, the evaluation was for one was 2023 and the other 2026. Baxter, I'm assuming the 2026 was more positive, meaning positive in the bad way, than 2023, because, you know, as we age and stuff, we tend to progress a little bit, unless there's like a cure or something. So curious about that. If it's not what I would assume, that it's worse in 2026 than in 2023. And you know, sometimes we get tests, guys, that, and this is not just for cognitive, I've seen it with MRIs. It's a little frustrating because you could see an MRI where it shows something negative, meaning bad. I should say positive, bad. And then a year later, that same thing isn't showing. I just had that at a hearing, actually, and the judge brought it up. So which one's incorrect? Well, did the person miraculously heal? Or did the first one show it and the second one just didn't show it because it's a less quality result? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. And that just literally happened a couple weeks ago at a hearing. Something was showing on, might have been an X-ray. It might have been an MRI or an X-ray, I forget. It was like the presence of something, like a bone, for instance, and then it wasn't showing in a position. So very strange. I don't think something like that would miraculously heal. Versus bad days versus good days, Baxter, absolutely. And that's the trouble when we have bad days and good days. You go for a test and you're doing great, you know. But yeah, I mean, you might even want to start. I'm usually journaling. I'm usually considering other kind of impairments when we suggest journaling, but it doesn't hurt to do it anyway, just in case it could be useful. Your bad days, you know, cognitively or whatever, memory-wise, versus your good days, in one of those little tiny notebooks, you know. or a little mini, monthly calendar, the little tiny ones where you could just be like, B, wherever there's a bad, and you could even have in the front of the calendar, this is cognitive and memory days, bad versus good, because I know they happen. So that way you will have something, and you can even show it to you could Xerox it, send the pages into whoever treats you for the cognitive, as well as your PCP probably, because I think they should know everything. They might not want to, but I think they should. And you could sum it up and say, as you can see, for the last, from June through May, I had at least 14 bad days a month or whatever. No months went less than that, because that's just how much it's progressed. Baxter says, should I emphasize that as a bad day versus a good day? The evaluation. Okay, we saw that. One in Mike. CG says, hey, can you explain dual entitlement for children on two workers' records, survivor and SSDI combined family max? Thanks. Well, in a nutshell, sure. Okay, so a child with a deceased parent and a disabled parent would basically be, that would be an example of potential dual entitlement. If both parents were workers, you got one who passed away, and all the dependents could be potentially eligible and entitled to benefits under that deceased worker's record. At the same time, the living spouse becomes disabled, and they were a worker too, and now there's two. Since the children don't have their own work record, fortunately, part of the insurance we pay for with SSDI, and Social Security in general, I should say, covers them, right? So now they got the one parent where they would be eligible, because when you're a dependent of the deceased parent, eligible if you're a minor, and then SSDI because our children get a dependent benefit if we are disabled and we're workers and they're minors, or disabled before the age of 22. So does that mean they get a double whammy? They don't, unfortunately. They'll get the highest benefit amount available. So if the survivor had more of a robust income history work-wise, then they probably will produce the highest amount for the child, and that would be the amount the child can collect, and all the children. The beauty, if you will, of two parents being eligible. Let's say it was just one, and it was just the survivor CG, and the survivor's benefit was $2,000, and the I don't know if I'm going to be doing the math right here. Let's say it was no. All right, I'm going to make up numbers because I'm not thinking very fast on my feet with the math. Let's say the survivor's own benefit, PIA, primary insurance amount, would have been $3,000. Each kid as a survivor, I think, would be eligible for up to 75% of that. So that's going to be what, 20 something, 2,000 something each. However, because of his family max, they're not going to be able to collect that, because the family max is going to be anywhere from 150% of the 3,000 that was his PIA up to maybe somewhere in the 180s. I don't know that it goes higher than the 180s. So the max is bigger than his 3,000, but there's still a cap to it. So if there's multiple children, they all can't be getting, let's say the max is 5,000, the family max, and there's 4 kids. They're not each going to be able to collect their 2,000 or 2,200, because that would exceed that family max. So they'd all have to be, a piece would have to be sliced off the top, and they all get, a balanced, fair, equal amount. However, when you have another parent that's living and they also have a family max, those kids can now get the fullest, they're eligible for that full amount under the survivor parent, the deceased parent. However, they can collect it under both. So like, she has a 4,000 family max, she's collecting, say 3,000 herself or whatever, so there's 1,000 left, or let's say she's collecting 2,300 and there's 1,700 left to add to what the kids can now collect, because the deceased parent's Family Max would not allow them to collect the full 75% or whatever they'd be collecting each. So that can be definitely a great addition to what they can get, as opposed to the Family Max cutting them off, because now you got 2 Family Maxes. I hope that made sense. Did I answer that in a way that was comprehensible, CG? I hope it was. But yeah, and one thing to keep in mind with, I personally know people who have gone through this, survivor, and with children, multiple children, and the survivor, if they're working and or not working, particularly if they're not working, let's say they're raising the little kids, that is going to end when, if that survivor is not disabled themselves to get disabled widow benefits, not approaching retirement age. So the particular instance I'm thinking of, this widow with multiple children collected a fairly healthy survivor benefit between all of them with Family Max, but didn't go to work even when the kids started school. And when the kids were starting to age out, that money shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. It didn't shrink at first because there were so many kids, and they never could collect their full 75, right? But let's say there were 5 kids. When one went out, the amount stayed the same because it just helped the other people get closer to their 75%. And then the second one went out, and there's 3 left, 2 left. 2 left is probably still not too bad. But when there's none left, or 1 left, you might experience a change in the household income as a result, because they're not going to collect that $5,000 they were altogether. Now it's going to be, this one gets $2,000. That's all we got coming in now. So it's really important, particularly if we're not disabled but we're collecting a survivor benefit, to plan that are you going to get some skills to go back into the workforce? Be prepared. Maybe go back to school, get a technical degree, something that you could do while parenting to prepare for that day when that gravy train, in a sense, is not going to be there anymore. And that would be true too if you are a disabled surviving spouse, of course. It's eventually going to, if there's children, diminish. Okay. I think we hit on that pretty well, right, CJ? Let me know if I left anything out that you're curious about. Desiree's in the house. Hi, Desiree. Did we meet a long time ago? Nope. She says, hello, I'm new to this chat. Okay. But I've been waiting on pending disability now for 2.5 years. Is it bad that it's taking so long? I don't know what's going on with your case that it's taken so long. Some people say it's taking 2 years because they've been denied. That's not good. So the question is, what are you not presenting evidence-wise? What is lacking in your case that only you can fix? Because you're the only, the disabled person is the only one that can treat for it, right? So is it bad that it's taken so long? Yeah, because you're not with your benefits. That's bad. But the most important thing is, Desiree, getting a good evaluation of where your case is at and why am I not winning? Is it because you're only 35, or and you have this big mountain up here? Well, then what do you have to meet the mountain? You might not, horrible to say, but you might not meet it. If you say there's barely any jobs I can do because I'm so disabled, well, barely is not all of them. So you got to learn what the rules are that apply. And if you're like, no, but I couldn't do those jobs either that they say I could do, well, then get your proof. What is it about those jobs that their residual functional capacity assessment said you could do that would therefore allow you to do that? And go get the evidence that shows you that your RFC is lower than what they found. Your medical records weren't speaking to it. And a lot of times that's an articulation problem, I believe, with the doctors. And they don't like me because I say that. I don't think. It's nothing personal. It's just a fact. Lawyers have bad reputations for things too. Goodness knows. So, all right. That's right. 2 Jules. You know what's funny? Ooh, silver star. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds nice. Thank you. If anyone wants to explain it to me. 10 jewels. That sounds positive to me. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means, though. If I get a chance to research it, that's very I will. But if that's something nice that you did for us, thank you very much. I'm sure everyone here appreciates. So Russ is in the house and says, I have DAC, okay, disabled adult child. If Democrats win both Senate and Congress in this upcoming election, can Democrats get rid of big beautiful bill? Question. This way there are less likely losing Medicaid, although, I mean, whoever has control of Congress and technically the White House, yeah, they make the rules. So, I mean, I don't know, will they get rid of the big, they could get rid of the tax benefits and the tax breaks we got from that, sure. They could make it much easier for everyone to keep getting Medicaid even if they're not disabled. They could do that, sure. CG, example, CG, were we continuing CG? Oh, example, survivors benefits 1851 for myself and 2 kids. You want me to bring up my calculator? 2 kids, then my own SSD feeling max is 1500. Okay, so the 1851 is the family max under the deceased spouse parent. Is that correct, CG? So 1851. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure with your 1500 of one's own. So add those two together. What does it give us? 3351 would be the family max, and the 1851 would be the one that controls, how much each person can get. So you as a disabled survivor or caretaker, even if you're not disabled, would get X amounts. That would be the amount you can collect based on all of those eligible avenues, which are the two, your own and the survivors. So the 3351 would be, you guys are just going to collect the whole 3351. You know what I'm saying? And then you don't really have to worry about who's getting which one. And the SSA will have that all marked out accordingly, but technically it's all coming in your household. They assume you all live together and you're going to be using it for bills. So it's not like you have to be like, here, Johnny, here's your 1200, and now we have to try to survive on the ballot. I mean, you're taking care of the person, so the child, so that's not really looked at the same way as if you were a representative paid for someone who wasn't your child. Just keep the lights on, food on the table, and the mortgage or the rent paid, right? Handsome's in the house. Handsome? Smart and handsome. And fibbing. Ah, we met before, right? People who are trying to game the system usually are trying to get out of working and won't go to the effort of trying to submit headache diaries, etc. My opinion, anyway. That could be true. And I'm not sure that if you're talking about someone who's truly gaming the system, which, by the way, it's so easy to pull those people out because the medical, you just don't even have to worry about it. We've talked about this before. I'm a firm believer that if you make something sloppy with the door wide open and there's nice stuff inside, it's going to be stolen. It's human nature. People are greedy. It doesn't mean all of us would do that or any of us would do that, but there is always going to be a percentage of society that's going to do that. It's just the way it is. And it's been that way since the beginning of time. So the medical records speak to the evidence. And because we generally don't expect doctors to be lying on behalf of patients so that the patients can win benefits, not that it hasn't happened. There have been a few major fraud busts, not recently in this, but so could a doctor fake records and fake treatment and fake? Absolutely could. I think it would be very rare. It's happened, but I think it's rare because they, as they say, well, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, and the more you've got to lose. That's what I always say about lawyers doing SSD. We still have our lawyer obligations, or we can get disbarred. We've got a lot to lose, if we, are negligent or whatever. Whereas people who, are non-attorney reps, who are very good, by the way, but they don't have the same thing to lose. They might lose, the capacity to work and do SSD work, but we lose our licenses, so we can't even use, that $400,000 degree that we're still paying off. But yeah, as to whether or not they're going to be diligent about headache diaries, you might be. That does come with a sense of logic to it. Smart. I can't say I could refute that. But of course, we do know that some scammers are very, very creative and very, very. They're so willing to work so hard at scamming when they could just go out and get a legitimate job. So they always say about, like, if the hackers would just use their brains, their brilliant brains, to do something productive for society, they could probably make a ton of money being honest. But for whatever reason, maybe all that excessive regulation, they're like, oh, at least when I'm breaking the law hacking, there's no regulation that controls me. It could be. I don't know. That's just fun talk anyway. Russ says, any recommendations part-time work with healthcare, maybe in hospital? I don't know what your what all your impairments are, Russ, because you want your work choice. Even though it's part-time, you're not going to be protected from scrutiny if your work-related tasks that you have to do belie what you claimed you couldn't do. And even your doctors might have said, maybe you have these MRIs that would completely suggest that you couldn't do that kind of stuff, even 20 hours a week. But you're out doing it. Now the inference could be, wow, look at that MRI with that representation, but this person's asymptomatic. Wow, So I always say, try to pick a job that's suitable to what your disabilities are. And don't really pick the job that's you could do it at 20 hours a week where you couldn't do it at 40, but it's going to hurt. Because it's, the obvious idea is, who's going to believe that's a choice, when you could do something that's within your disability capacities, I suppose. So really, I don't know what you're doing in the healthcare, and I don't know, do you have mental and physical or just physical problems? If you have mental and it's a cognitive thing or memory or getting along with people, then I don't suggest you're working with the public, because then it kind of belies that whole thing. Russ says, I have SSA Medicare and Medicaid. Okay, so you're, I see what you're saying. The Medicaid is because you're poor enough. I don't know if you have a little bit of SSI, but you definitely have SSD, because that's how you got the Medicare. But thinking of getting part-time job, hospital, or USPS. I'm not sure where you're picking those places, but if the job you pick is not inconsistent with your disabilities, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. I would say stay clear of SGA. Don't even flirt with it. I'd stay hundreds of dollars beneath it. And if you really want to be, hi Tosh, if you really want to be extra anal, as they say, extra careful, maybe consider not going above TWP. Because once you go over TWP for enough months, they can start looking at the work you're doing part-time a lot more in-depthly. To the actual tasks. Whereas if you are under TWP, trial work period amount, which I think is in the high 11s still per month, they can't use the work you're doing as evidence against you, if I'm saying that right. I might be saying that too broadly. If Judge John were here, he could probably help us more. One of these weeks, though. Okay. Otherwise, I think, Russ, that's good. Now, keep in mind, if you're collecting SSI For every $2 you earn at that job, $1 of SSI will no longer be owed to you. And I just want you to make sure that if you need that Medicaid, that your income is not going to go up. The income you collect on your Medicaid rules in your state, that they don't, now you're making too much to be on Medicaid. So just, be really careful. Did you say you were DAC? Ah, you did. You were DAC, right? Yes, DAC. Okay. So I'm thinking you don't have SSI. You had it before you got the DAC. That gave you the Medicaid, and due to the protection rule, you did not lose your Medicaid just because you got more money on DAC. Is that right? Which is good, because if you're not an SSI, then you don't have to worry about that. You just got to worry about, SGA and potentially TWP if you're a very cautious person. Okay. Let's see. Okay. CG says, oh no. Now, I lost my spot, people. Alright. I shouldn't have clicked off. I made that mistake. Let's see. You're welcome, CJ. CJ says, thank you for explaining. Okay, Russ says, I know I'm limited to monthly, 1,100 to 1,500 monthly goal is insurance. I'm not sure. You have insurance, so. So yeah, but determine why you think that is your monthly goal. What are you trying to achieve? Because you said it's a limited. So like, if 1,100 would be under TWP, 1,500 would not be under TWP, and that stands for trial work period, guys. If I didn't say it earlier. And you might not care about trial work period. And considering you're a DAC and you've probably been on disability for a long time, you might not have to worry about it. But some people are very they get nervous and they want to be extra conservative. William S. says, stop by to say, probably hi, right, William? Nice to see you, William. Thank you for stopping in. Baxter says, do you pay taxes on lump sum award? It's taxable, generally speaking. It will depend upon your income tax bracket. Okay? So, yeah. So figure that out. And just, I know I've done a video on this a long time ago, but if you get a lump sum in 2026 for back benefits, it covers 3 years of what was owed to you in 22, 23, 24, 25, there is an avenue that your tax person, or you if you're brilliant, without having to redo those tax returns to add that money then, so it's not all blumped in 1 month, 1 year. There is an avenue in which to have that done with the current filing, so it'll instead of taxing you on, say, $100,000, let's say you got $100,000 in back benefits, instead of taxing you on that like you got it all this year, which is going to pop you up into probably a higher tax bracket, they will, which could affect other things too, like things that you might be financially eligible for based on your tax return. And now they see this, you could use whatever that accounting principle is, I'm just going to call it that, and you'll pay the $10,000, let's see, $20,000 you got for 2023 that you got in 2026. It's going to be taxed as if you got it in 2023, and if that was the only income you had, that's almost tax-free, at least for the federal government, because that, not the big beautiful bill, but the one before then, in 2017, that kicked in 2018, gave us that much higher standard deduction, where no federal taxes on it. Oh, and yeah, who was asking about that? Russ, I think. They could take that away too, Russ. Careful what you wish for. Let's see. So yeah, always, I think if you have a big lump sum, it might be worth looking into that. Whether you invest in a tax preparer or not, you know, to have it done. But getting taxed on 2023's $20,000 when that was your only income versus getting taxed on that $20,000 in 2026 when it looks like you have $100,000 worth of income, it's going to be quite a bit more money that you're going to be paying out. So you kind of want to get it back to 23. You know, what would it be in 23 given what I was making then? And then the 24, same thing in 25. I don't know what they call that. I just know that it exists. Russ's SSDI and DAC. Oh, Russ, another thing, if you do take the job, which I think is pretty awesome, since you're not on SSI, you're not going to have to deal with that extra confusion. Gosh, that $2 in, $1 out, it's a real pain. Working can increase your own SSDI, and who knows, maybe it would one day become greater than your DAC. And then you don't have to worry about DAC. DAC is so much better than SSI, but it's still got a couple of those little rules. The dependency rules, really. You know, the whole marriage thing is one. People don't understand it. I totally understand why it's the way it is, but I know it's frustrating, but you can't be married to a rich person and expect to have the taxpayers feed you, you know? But your SSDI in your own working right could potentially, you know, increase higher than the DAC. So just something to think about. And, you know, I'm going to try to develop the calculations to figure out, well, what will it take for this to happen? What do I have to earn every year? I don't know that they make it very simple for that on the website yet. They have calculators, but I think you got to plug in little things and redo it, and there might be better ways. But it's also kind of makes me curious about people who have low retirement amounts and they're working. And it's like, well, if you just bumped up your work, or like if you're self-employed and you're writing off all your expenses so you don't pay don't pay as much taxes. What if you didn't do that? How quickly would your retirement amount that you're collecting now because you're an older person, how much would that increase? I'd really like to see it, because it might be worth paying a little bit more in taxes to make that happen. Civil Chick says, good afternoon, chat. She's saying that to all you guys. Hi, Civil. Cindig's also in the house. Hello, hello. Good to see you. Desiree says, I've been denied the first try, but I think it's also because the benefit advocates wasn't turning anything in either. Well, technically, everything that you put in your application, the SSA is supposed to order it, and probably primarily first. What the advocates, I think, should be doing is keeping an eye on that electronic file of yours to see what's come in, what isn't coming in. Did the adjudicator order it like they were supposed to? Because you can see the copies of what they've requested in there. And if they see something that was requested and there's been no response from your doctors, then tell you so you can talk to your doctor. That's what I would do. And it's not that we can't order them, but we're not supposed to send in duplicates. Definitely not to the judges, but I think down below as well, it's frowned upon. And I've seen things where it backfires because the adjudicator sees that Dr. Jones' records came in, even though it's only 2 visits worth and you've been there 15 times, and they think that's a done deal. Oh, Jones is in there, I don't have to go order those. So it's kind of like a balancing act. It's a real pain in the rear, actually, of a balancing act. But David says, geez. Okay, geez. Our Willie says, good afternoon, Steph. Hi, our Willie. Good to see you, pal. Smart says, oh, wait a minute. John, meaning Judge John? Meaning 2 chicks? Wasn't 2 chicks already in here? I saw it up above, or is this a different John? Because I do have a lot of clients named John, as you can imagine. John. I'm thinking it's, I don't know. We'll see if you let me know. So, like, did you change your name after you were in here? I mean, at the end of this, I can scroll up and see, because you're right there in the beginning. Russ says, by being DAC benefits, if I get girlfriend to have child, but avoid relationship, including avoid last name, keep mommy's last name to avoid losing DAC. I don't know that you can't have a child. That doesn't make you not be dependent on the parent whose record you're collecting on. Not that I've ever researched that, but I think that would be really bizarre if they were to say, oh, a DAC person can't have a kid or they lose a relative. I don't think that's true at all. Your problem is if you, I know with SSI, people are acting and treating each other financially and other ways as if they're married, living together, filing taxes together. It's not like a set list. It's like a whole totality of the circumstances. Are they actually kind of like common law married, but still trying to collect the welfare SSI, despite, having this wealthy income earner footing their bills and, acting like a spouse? I don't know that would be I don't know if that's true with DAC. DAC may be when you're actually married, like ceremony under the law, which is a state-by-state thing. But I don't know that you couldn't have a child. Now, your child is not going to have benefits. So you want to make sure, that other person's capable of supporting the child that you might not be capable of supporting. So, you got to think about those things too. So, and I don't think that a child has to keep mommy's last name. I would be very surprised if there was some sort of, a DAC person can't adopt, or a DAC person, if you have a child, you have a child, right? It's an awesome thing, actually. I would be very happy for you, Russ. So I don't think it's as bad as you think with this question. I think your ability to do that is not as legally hampered as you think. Keep it as an unmarried girlfriend. I would like to, we went over this a while back. I would like to know more firmly, can the implied marriages that apply to SSI apply to DAC? I didn't see anything alluding to that. So just because you have a girlfriend, what if you're even roommates? But you could have a different roommate, but you can't be super fond of that roommate. You know what I mean? So it gets to be a little. So I kind of feel like it could be even a living situation with a very positive romantic relationship, but don't file jointly. Don't pretend you're married when you're not. You're two parents. You might be romantically involved, and you do things separately. That's what, in terms of the legalities and the financials. To the extent of it would otherwise imply living like you're married. And nobody needs to live like they're married anymore. It's such a freer society, right? Where you can, what do they call it? Cohab, right? We used to call it something else. And I did it myself. What do we call it? Living in sin, all this. But by the time I was an adult, I'm like, it's the 80s. Are you kidding? I'm not, what did I say? So bad. I'm not buying that cow right off the bat, that kind of thing. So rude. Sorry, guys. All right, Dazboff says, severe degenerative disc disease, DDD, with MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, all confirming severe stenosis. The stenosis is of the canal, or foramina, or what? Nerve impingement, lots of records and treatment, 60-year-old, less than high school, did medium job, 30 years. I think you have a very good case. Where are you at with it? How does my case look for a grid roll, he says, he or she. It sounds like you have a very positive case because you had a medium job in your past relevant work, assuming that's in the last 5 years. Presumably your diagnostics and all of your treatment records really suggest he cannot be doing medium level work. I'm assuming you didn't have anything other than that medium level work and didn't, sometimes if you were a high-end supervisor or foreman or manager, despite having to lift medium-level stuff, they will say you can transfer some of those skills to that sedentary job we think you can do. So you have to make sure to leave that needle, as they say, or as I say, ad nauseum. But otherwise, I mean, that would be, like, to me, an excellent case. Because you can design it to get where you want to go. Russ has epilepsy, memory, and balance problems. I'm sorry about that, Russ. That's not easy. Keith Clark is in the house. Hi, Keith. I have just applied due to my vision impairment and both knees being replaced. I've just applied due to my vision impairment. Both doctors said I should qualify. Doctors say a lot of stuff and they're infuriating because they say it when they don't know what they're talking about and they sometimes mislead people. That doesn't mean they're wrong here. I'm just saying, be careful. Most of them have not even studied it. They subjectively, and with their medical stuff, are like, he's got disabilities, but they have not studied the 12,000 jobs or the rules that apply to figuring that out. So, how does my age help being 59? Very, very much. That's like that is the reason why. You would probably have a strong case if you met those criteria that apply to 59-year-olds. 59 is excellent. That's like the best rules under the medical vocational, guidelines that we have. And as I think, who was it? As Daz Boff said, he or she is 60. 59 is pretty much counted the same as 60. You've got the best rules in place to make it far easier to win than if you were in your early 50s. And way hard, easier than if you were 49, 48, 47. The over 35 years of work is not necessarily relevant. Well, it is if it's in the last 5 years, only because it means you can't try to grid out on no work. Or not grid out, but have the finding that there's no past relevant work. But still, there, depending on what that work is, you might have the same, or not, the same little wiggle thing I described to Das about if you have a skill that's transferable, you have to make sure you get the evidence to disprove medically what needs to be disproven with regard to that. Otherwise, that would sink your case too, because you would fail in one of the 3 prongs that you have to meet at age 59. Sybil says, I've completed the ME. Well, they now require me to do a PE. What is the ME? Do you mean a CE consultative exam, Sybil? Do you mean a mental consultative exam? And by PE, do you mean a physical consultative exam? Usually they schedule them close in time. So they not only do they schedule you for the mental, you already actually went and everything, and then so maybe they're not doing a PE. Maybe all they needed was the ME. Maybe the PE is kind of strong and everything it proves, and the ME proves this other little part that would maybe win your case. Or if the mental exam suggests that you are fit as a fiddle, maybe then you don't win the case. Because like I said, I usually see them kind of scheduled close in time, so I mean, anything could change. They can do it, but I would tend to think that it might lean heavier that they won't be filing securing a physical consultative exam for you. Russ, okay, he's clarifying, I want to get off Medicaid and have health care from part-time job. Well, you have Medicare, so when you say you want to get off Medicaid, you don't mean Medicare, right? You like the Medicare, you just don't want the Medicaid? Or you don't need the Medicaid. The beauty of the Medicaid, guys, when it's concurrent like this, like Russ has, is that the Medicaid will pay the co-pays, deductibles that Medicare doesn't pay, which is like the 80-20 thing. So it can save you a lot of money by having the Medicaid. And it pays the premiums, which is $200 and something a month, I think, right? So, I mean, Is it worth staying on Medicaid forever just for that? Not necessarily. Not if you can earn and you like your work and all that kind of stuff. But you're thinking you're going to get health care from a part-time job? What part-time jobs actually offer health care? I suppose it could exist. I'm not familiar with any that really generally do, right? Unless you're saying you just want to take the part-time job money and buy your own health care, but you have Medicare, so I'm not sure why you would want to do that. We've got Ronaldo Productions in the house. Hi, Ronaldo. I had 2 consultative exams. How long will it take until I get a decision from the SSA? Typically, we saw them usually coming pretty fast after the consultative exams. Once the examiner gets the reports up. Because then it's ready to go to probably the medical expert in the SSA to make an assessment as to, does he meet a listing? If not, what's his RFC? So usually within a few weeks, historically anyway. I don't know how well your state has been staffing your disability agency. That's all state related, so it's all federal rules they have to apply, but it's the state workers employed by the state. So some states have done better than other states in managing that. Russ says $1,500 monthly part-time job with benefits existing, like in library. Hey, if you can get benefits with a part-time job, that's sweet. Or stay on Medicaid. How much would my UHC benefits cost monthly? Advantage care. I have no idea how much your benefits would. How would I know that? I'm not a health insurance attorney. I'm just Social Security, disability, and SSI, of course. But yeah, you're gonna have to do your research and find out your specifics, because it's all very specific to your particular situation. Which plan are you going to get? What does your conditions require that you need? Medications? I'm sure with epilepsy, right? Heather says, good afternoon, Stephanie, Tasha, and chat. Hi, Heather. AF Vet is in the house. Hey, AF, good to see you. Happy Wednesday. Chit Slots is in the house. Hello, I just turned 66 on SSDI. How long will SSA switch me to regular as soon as you hit full retirement age, which is probably, is it full age 67 for you? Or is it like 66 and 11 months? I don't even know when it, I know for me it will be the full 67, but it's kind of a titrated thing. So like people that were older than me, they were still in that graduation, so they didn't have to wait till 67. It was more like when they started moving at guys from 65 to 67 many years ago, before my time even practicing this, so that's how many decades ago, they didn't just say to people that were 64, from now on, it's not 65 where you can have full retirement, you gotta wait till 67. They did it more of a little by little, For this age group, we're only going to move it 1 month. You're going to be 65 in 1 month. Then 65 in 2 months. So it just kind of graduated up as the population moves closer. My clicker isn't working. Sybil says, for my mental eval, I've seen 2 people. The first one told me I do not need a pay aid. Then I went to another person. I'm not even sure if I answered all of her questions. I really need a new brain. You don't need a new brain. I guess you'll find out if you prevail, if they think you need a representative payee. And if it's only because you are not that good at paying bills, let's say that was the reason. You just forget, or you forget to write them or whatever. Auto bill pay can be a solution to that, so you don't need an RPay. And then you're going to want someone to, you're going to want to explain that. But I pay them on AutoPay. And I don't go, A lot of times, representative pay for mental would be because the person has poor judgment in what to spend their money on and then doesn't have enough left to pay their bills. Or they're very vulnerable to exploitation by scamsters. So, either one of those can do it too. Smart Handsome says, yes, okay. It's Judge John. Yeah, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. And you did, so you changed that name right after we got in here. Okay. That's why I was confused. Dolphin from California. Hey, Dolphin. RD, good to see you. DG is in the house. Hi, love the show. My hearing was canceled and the judge made a decision on the record. What is that? That means he doesn't even have to hear you speak. He agrees that the medical evidence you have and have provided proves that you're disabled. And it means that it will be fully favorable to when you gave your alleged onset date. They can't do that if they're going to let you win, but say, but we don't really agree with that date. I don't agree with that date. I think it's only 6 months ago that you were disabled. It's got to be fully favorable for him to do that. So, yeah, that's hugely wonderful, DJ. How long have you known? When did you get the news? We had one recently, too. It was, like, awesome. Because they're the ones that don't happen a lot. Usually you're kicking and screaming for every win, you know? So, it's pretty awesome. We'd already done all the work, though. I mean, the brief was already in, so that's probably why, but good for you. That's really good. Victoria says, do you have any referrals for a good attorney near Columbus, Ohio concerning overpayment made to you? There's plenty of good attorneys, I'm sure, in Ohio, but do you have a retainer? Whether they're going to be someone that you will accept. If you're like, well, no, I don't want that. I don't want to pay a retainer. They're going to overpayments. There's no way to get paid unless the person paid a retainer, and you can take it out of there if you end up getting a approval from SSA to even charge them at all. So it's really kind of difficult. Some people prefer to do consultations because they just can't get someone to jump on board because they know they're never going to get paid. So sometimes you got to just consultations. Some are more hands-on than others, but they cost more. Or it's just the kind that you ask for guidance and then you do all the legwork. Like hash out what kind of proof should I get? How do I prove, how much money I had, and do you know how to use spreadsheets, that kind of thing. Kathy Clayton's in the house. Hi, Kathy. Good afternoon. Ross is in the house. Hi, Ross. Should I share my medical records electronically to my attorney staff so they can upload them to the SSA to ensure the case person has my records, or just let SSA request them from the doctors? We like to be very hands-in with our clients' court of records. So, but every practice is going to be different. We do it for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's to get something, but there's still it's not exactly the same thing as the official record set. The SSA, I would speak to your attorney staff. Are they asking you to go get your records? I have a case right now where the SSA was trying to get certain VA-related medical records and was having trouble, which seems weird because they would think it would just be all part of the HIPMR. So I did have, VA, my client went in. I said, get from X date to Y date, the full, it's like the blue button, get the full thing. It's exorbitantly long, a lot of wasted papers. I know judges don't really prefer that, but when you're representing your client, it's not about what a future judge might one day prefer when he's not even on the case right now. It's getting that updated material to the adjudicator who was for some reason not. It's like they weren't doing a HIPMR for it, and it didn't come in the JHIE. So I don't know. Some of these VA-related medical providers either don't participate in that, or they're not. Maybe they're not community though, because then they're not really technically VA. So I don't really know why, but I know I went ahead and sent it out because I'm not. The risk of it not being there, because some future judge might not like that it was 871 pages for that one piece. It's not my problem. I wouldn't what I would do if I had a judge, because if it was at the judge stage, which is not, I would be talking to the judge's assistant and saying, hey, could you do a HIPMR from here to here? And they'll do it. A judge actually told me that's, a couple of years ago, it was like, so this is like, instead of doing like portal stuff, if you can get a HIPMR done, we like those records way better. So you do what they would like to do. It doesn't matter to us. We just want to get the records in. Kathy says, and by the way, we're almost hitting up on an hour, guys. Kathy says, would the PALMS rule apply if your past job was office work? Which PALMS rule are you referring to? Can you specify? PALMS rule? There's like a gazillion of those. Office work tends to be considered sedentary. Even when I know the person was like the one that had to go get the water cases and carry big files, like, paralegal or whatever, and had to carry an insurance file. They used to make, paper. Now with everything being digital, maybe there's also that carrying going around, so it is considered oftentimes sedentary. That makes it harder to win, except at 62, even if you can do sedentary, your biggest thing is, that's probably at least semi-skilled work, and it's got plenty of likely transferable skills, so you're going to have to prove that for some reason you can't transfer those mental skills that you learned at that job. And that's assuming those insurance company, that job was in the last 5 years, right? The applicable 5 years to your past relevant work period. Kathy said she's 62. 62 years young, Kathy, right? DJ says, I submitted all paperwork from the doctor, had an official neuropsychological testing showing significant decline. I suffered a serious TBI. I'm very sorry to hear that, DG. Also, doctor wrote an official mental capacity statement. I'm 57. Okay. I don't know if we had a question attached to that part. Oh, you're talking about, and then you were later found to be a word on the record. That's awesome. I'm glad. You obviously had to go a long way thus far. You're already at hearing stage, so it's not like you haven't worked hard to get there even, right? Victoria's in the house. Hi, Victoria. I don't think we've met. Attorney referrals in Columbus, Ohio concerning an overpayment. Yeah, I know. I saw that. Was that you? Yeah. Again, very few attorneys. I feel like I was one of the very few in the country that did overpayment cases. And now it's just not affordable to do overpayment cases. It's basically a pro bono thing. So once in a blue moon, I take one on pro bono. It's that whole wait list thing, which means most people on the wait list don't ever get representation from me, because it is very, very, if you're going to do it right and win, and I don't think we've ever lost one of those, it's extremely time and labor intensive. So do you have the money to pay for it, or you don't? You want someone to do it, it's troublesome. Consultation, first of all, you don't need to be looking at Columbus, Ohio, because they're not going to be taking you out to lunch or anything. You can use anyone in the entire country, Victoria. Anyone who practices Social Security disability. So don't limit yourself. If you're thinking you're stuck with someone in Columbus, Ohio, you're not. You go to California, anywhere. But you're probably going to, I think a lot of time you're either going to come up with a dandy retainer like 9200. That's easier said than done, right? Or you self-represent, and this is not always true. You might find someone. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying just prepare for plan A, plan B. The other thing is that you start just doing consults, maybe like an hour a month, just to try to, or maybe 2 hours, and then you hopefully have your list of what you have to do. Maybe you don't use up the whole 2 hours, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna pay for this block of time, but can we do it over? I'll email you things. Can you look at them? And the 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is will get utilized. And probably it's not that slow, because like I said, you got to be nitpicky, looking at numbers, comparing bank statements, doing this, putting it in a spreadsheet. It is not fun, because you got to get the big picture, and then you have to show the big picture, and it depends what your overpayment was about. If you were overpaid because you were working and you went slightly over SGA, well, do you have any impairment-related work expenses that would you subtracted each month that could tip you under SGA, and then you just eliminated your entire overpayment if you have all the months covered. There's that too. But you got to show month by month by month. Okay, DJ says, also worked for 30 years for the same company. From a legal perspective, that means nothing. It's irrelevant who you worked for. However, you got to wonder, from a subjective, is this a reliable working type of dude who wouldn't be here if he didn't have to be? I don't think it hurts that someone is at 30 years at the same company. Although I also don't know that it would be so bad if there were 30 diligent years working for a variety of companies either. The whole thing about working diligently and even working after all the problems start, and that's going to be easy to know because of an alleged onset date. And if you're, before that you're working full time, but you're like getting growing problems that are medically evident, and the complaints are showed you just hadn't left your job yet, you just suffered through it. I think that speaks a picture, I think it speaks a picture. It's not one that you can make the legal basis for an award, but it certainly can, influence the credibility factor. Keith Clark says, hi back, love your videos. I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks for joining us. Sybil says, I have 5 listings. Seem like they were more concerned about if I needed a payee or not. Well, that's part of the rules. When you go to a mental exam, that's one of the questions on our list, so they have to answer it. So it's everyone. It's not just you. It's anyone that goes to a mental exam. And again, I hear this a lot, so this is not personal against you, Sybil. I have 5 listings. No, you think you have 5 listings. And I don't know if you've been denied on initial yet, but if you did, that meant they found that you met none of them. So, you might have a diagnosis that if it was more severe as per your medical records, it could meet a listing, but your medical records illustrate that it is not that severe. And that's the kicker. Baxter says, I was a medic for 14 years, but haven't worked since 2018. Do I have a work history? You do not. No work history, which is easier for your case, by the way, Baxter, so don't take that the wrong way. The mere fact that you have, and you're probably not insured for Social Security Disability anymore either. So whatever date you picked, assuming you were insured before, you have to make sure that your onset date falls before your date last insured. And just for anyone who hasn't caught this before, if you don't know what your date last insured is, you can call your local office and ask for it. They should be gracious and give it to you. Or call the 1-800 number, which is 1-800-772-1213, and they'll give you your date last insured. There's also, it can also be calculated by hand. It takes a little bit of time. If someone has your earnings statement, your SSA earnings statement. So you can also, we have like a little mini service for that. It's not like a full-blown consult or anything. It's just like, just to find that date. It's pretty cheap. But the free way is to make the phone call to the 1-800 number. Russ says, Medicaid limit assets and bank and accounts. Yeah. Well, depending on your state, yeah. Some states you could be pretty wealthy in the bank and you're still going to get the free tax-paid health insurance, and then some are like, no, you really kind of have to be needy. Remember, that's all state, all state determined at this point. That's why we have probably all the problems. All that fraud and stuff that's been going on. Let's see. Our Willie says Starbucks offers health care and insurance. Ooh, nice. I used to work in a mom and pop restaurant, and they had group insurance for their employees, many of which were part of their family. But they have to offer it to everyone then. It's a matter of law, because it's a business expense, right? So and I did it when I was young, when I finally was like, I really probably should have health insurance. And I just took all of my paycheck pay. I was bartending. And I used that And so I basically got no paycheck. I just got my tips. But it gave me some basic health insurance. I don't even know if I ever really used it at that time, but you know, you always think if I don't have it, something's going to happen. Hey, Sunshine is in the house. This is my first application, Sunshine says. I had a mental health CE in May. How long does it take for a decision? That'll depend on what your case is at. That's pretty long ago that they gave you the mental health CE, so I'm not sure what the holdup is. In your case, normally I would have expected a decision by now after the CEs. Do you ever speak to your adjudicator, Sunshine? Maybe they're waiting on some medical records that you haven't sent in, or that they have been unable to get, and then you still haven't sent in. And then maybe they sent you a letter saying, hey, we couldn't get it from Dr. Jones. Can you contact your doctor? And maybe you didn't get the letter because the United States Postal Service might not have gone it to you properly. When in doubt, as a pro se, you have to call your adjudicator. If you have an attorney, you know, you should be communicating with them, and hopefully they're the ones that call the adjudicator for you. DG, you are very welcome. Oh, DG, you got your results yesterday. You must still be on... I mean, do I sound like a nerd if I say cloud 9? I mean, I'm really glad for you, because I know it's like, it's so stressful. I see what my people go through. I know what you guys are going through. So I'm really happy for you. We are usually very rah-rah here when someone prevails, right, guys? Russ says, if keeping Medicaid to avoid Medicaid taking family assets into... Oh. I don't know those rules. You want to speak to an estate planning person, I think. But I hear what you're saying, if that's true. How much does... Yeah, like... I would speak to an estate... I would invest a few $100 in a good consult with an estate planning expert, Medicaid particularly, and make sure that that's something that she should be concerned about. Or, you know... Or it could be, pardon me, you know, you set up trusts and things like that. Do estate planning. Utah can take families' assets, parents' bank assets, including home. I can't even drive. Comfortable responsible myself. Meaning you are unable to drive due to your conditions. I know that's difficult, right? You need, and if I were you, like if you're talking like, it sounds like you guys have a nice, estate situation. Maybe thanks to the parents or whatever, working hard, and the grandparents or whatever. And it's, trying to be generational to help the kids and the grandkids and make for a better family trajectory. I would be at the very least consulting. You're probably doing your research anyway, but then you want to have someone who actually practices it in your area, because it's going to be state by state. Sorry guys, I have I had double ear infections last week. Imagine that. I think I might have told you at live stream, maybe not. So I've been on amoxicillin for the last week. Today's my last day, and double eardrops. I didn't even know it. I was hearing a I thought about all my tinnitus people, right? I was getting this fast clicking in this ear. And I'd be like, I'm looking around like, it only happened when I tilted my head a certain way at times. So first it happened once, then maybe a day later it happened again. And then it happened twice the next day, and then 3 days, and so it was going on for a week. And I'm like, the first few times it happened, I really didn't know it was inside my head. I'm not kidding. I'm like, what is that sound? Is there like helicopter outside? Like, is there something on the ground? Is there some little toy? And then I realized it was in my ear. It wasn't ringing, it was clicking, a fast little flutter clicking. And indeed, apparently my ears are really, and they didn't hurt or anything. So if I seem deaf to you, maybe I am going deaf. But that's why I hustle to the urgent care, because I'm like, I can't be deaf. I can't do my job if I get too hard of hearing. Deli says, congratulations, DG. Yeah. DG says, you can skip my other questions you answered. Also, how to support other viewers with joint... Oh, honestly, I don't know. I know there's buttons. DG, that's really sweet of you to even think about doing that. I just blather here with you guys and answer questions. I don't know all of the ins and outs to how this works. I'm sorry. DJ, who's just prevailed as of yesterday with an OTR, said it was a 2-year journey. So yeah, you really, you pulled your weight there, pal. Hey, Virginia Gomez is in the house. Good afternoon. While I'm watching you, I got a call from disability, the medical, so to be adjudicator, needing their neurologist. And I told her it's a referral right now. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think what you're saying is they wanted to know who your neurologist was, and you said I haven't seen one because I've just been referred to him and it hasn't been set up yet. Is that what was going on? I mean, it's unfortunate because there's going to be no neurological evidence for you to rely on because you haven't had the appointment yet. I would always say, just to be my nagging self, guys, always get on those appointments. I know it's a pain. Nobody likes doing that kind of administrative, making appointments, sitting on hold, all that business. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. I mean, sometimes the portals can be helpful because now you can just do everything online and not sit there on hold. But and I will reiterate it again. More often than not, a good practice is when you leave a doctor's appointment, you schedule that next follow-up. If the receptionist is like, oh, Dr. Jones didn't mention it, just get a little kindly pushy, advocate for yourself and say, right, but, oh, he might not have, but I want to set it up for about 6 months from now. And then just see if you can lead her that way, or him. They might ask the doctor, but if you're seeing a specialist and you're his patient, there should always be a follow-up because you have a chronic problem, whether it's mental or physical. So even if they can't cure you, they need to monitor. Is it going to be worse in 6 months, or is it the same? If it's worse in 6 months, maybe there'll be a treatment that would be appropriate for that level of severity now that isn't appropriate now. What if it hasn't changed? Wow, should it have gotten worse? Something's going good here. You could figure it out. Or there could be, it hasn't changed, it hasn't improved, but there could be a new therapy on the market, a new procedure that at least could be discussed. Like here, there's a new protocol that they're doing, and it's been very successful. Would you like to discuss it? And then, but the point is, from a legal evidence point of view, not because I think you're going to be cured, that would be great. It'll be evidence for your case that this is still continuing complaints. And I find that that's something that gets neglected to be done far too often, and it's to the detriment of the strength of the person's case. Carrie says, I did it. I got approved for SSDI. I did it all by myself. Good for you, girl. Thanks to your YouTube channel, all the grid and treating both physical and mental health. Thank you. You are so welcome. I love it when the recommendations, are appropriate in real life, of course. And I'm really happy for you. I wonder how long you've been doing the big fight. DG says you can skip my other questions. Okay. Yeah. Sindig says, long wait for any response from SSDI with no income. Yes, it is. It's true. It's probably why I try to hoard savings whenever I can. Because I'm like, I'm not getting any younger. Things can go south at any time for any one of us. So, I wasn't a saver for a rainy day when I was younger. I was very irresponsible or whatever. And I guess I just, like young people, you feel you're immortal and nothing's going to happen. And that's for old people. And the next thing you know, we're breathing down senioritis. So, yeah, I had a lot of catching up to do. So, we tightened our belt a bit and we did some of that. Kathy Clayton says, what would trigger an overpayment? I hear a lot about overpayments. Okay. So there's a multitude of ways. I'd say for SSDI people, Kathy, the most common one is that they were working part-time and they forgot that there's a limit to how much you can earn and be considering unable to earn substantial income. So they're earning more than substantial income, which will get you ceased. And then because the cessation, the time they learn of it, by the time they get the IRS information because you didn't tell them, it could be many, many months later, now you have an overpayment. So, That is probably the single biggest way. It's that working, if you're on SSDI, the more rare thing would be like the person was committing fraud to begin with, and they retroactively said, oh, you're ceased as of 3 years ago because you lied about X, Y, and Z. I think those are really unusual. They're the ones that are going to be in the headlines. We might do them on Friday's Fraud Law Review. That comes out Fridays, but those are the ones that get caught and are bad, but there's millions of people, legitimately disabled people, availing themselves of the insurance they bought, worked forever for. So, now it's much easier to get an overpayment if you're on SSI. That's because that's a needs-based welfare program. So like if you're supposed to get $900 a month, and if you're earning $465 at a part-time job, not the job does not establish that you're not disabled, so that's not a worry with that. And you still see the doctor, so there's always proof that you're still disabled from full-time work, substantial, gainful activity. The difficulty with SSI is that after the first $65 of earnings from work is not counted, so you can earn that and not have any kind of offset. But after that, because it's a needs-based program that gets you up to $900, it doesn't have to give you all that $900 if you're earning it elsewhere. So they don't take away everything equal, like you earn $200, they take $200. No, it's for every $2 you earn, they're going to take $1 off the SSI. Since the SSI is welfare coming from the workers, literally the workers' taxes to, their withholdings from their own paychecks to cover that. So that is all fine and dandy. It just makes it a real pain for SSI people if they're not sticking to it closely and being like, all right, what they often do is if they know they're on a set schedule, they're going to be making $465 a month, the SSA will prospectively reduce them by the $200. So they're going to get, $700 in SSI, but they're bringing in $465, so they're still making way more than the $900. They will do that prospectively and saying, if your work changes or you stop, call us and we'll fix this, and then it'll come back. You'll get the full amount again. So it can be done properly. It's just that everyone's busy and people forget. And if they have a very changing income, it could be $465 this month, but it could be $800 next month, all of which is under SGA, even under trial work period. So it's not itself going to say that you're not disabled, but it's that money thing with the SSI. So that's a real pain. It's avoidable, but I don't see, most people probably do avoid it by keeping track and keeping the SSA informed, and maybe not spending that money for a couple months and, making sure that they pay it back. They don't also want to have a savings either, because that's a whole other thing, the resources. But it's the ones that don't pay attention and keep earning and they're keeping both, and they're not, doing what they have to do. And those are the ones that you hear from. It's definitely probably the vast minority of people, but it's still very difficult for them. And I feel for them, because it doesn't matter. We're all human and we all make these mistakes, Kathy Klein, is the Social Security Office not calculating the correct amount for your SSDI payment? Nope, that wouldn't be the reason. I would say for SSI, they're calculating correctly based on the information that they have. But if you start working and you don't tell them SSI, because your SSI amount has to change when you're whether you're working, Grandpa is sending you $1,000 a month, which would probably mean you can't get your SSI, because you have the $1,000 from another source. It's not that the Social Security Office is necessarily making a mistake. It's that they weren't informed, or the information, because a person sometimes does inform them, and they just don't. The action on that is not repeatable. I know that's something big they're working on right now to get that to me much better. It's historically, forever, as long as I've been doing this, in my third decade, it's always been a problem. And I think they're trying to use technology now to fast up that information so that the proper amount can be sent to the person without waiting 6 months and a big overpayment. So I hope they can, find the technology that will work with that. Probably has to do with employer reporting and maybe even IRS reports coming in more often. I don't know the details of what they're doing. I just know they're doing it. They've reported on it. I mean, it's public information depending on what pipeline of media information you choose to listen to. Russ says, reversible or irreversible trust. I'm not a trust attorney, so you're not going to get that answer out of me, Russ. But yes, an estate planning attorney, and there could be, I have a feeling if it's a revocable trust, and I think that's what you meant by reversible, you will find yourself in a bit of a jam because it probably has to be irrevocable. But I'm just saying probably. I'm not a trust attorney. I did one special needs trust for a person on Medicaid before I even did Social Security work. I was doing a divorce case, which I don't do those things anymore. But get yourself a good one. Just you'll rest easier because I know it's very stressful. You're trying to do the right thing on every way. Use all the laws to your benefit while also obeying all the laws to protect yourself, your family, your futures. You could do this. You just have to, I would do my own research and then I would go get somebody. I just would. I would get someone that's their specialty. And I think that the outlay will be worth the peace of mind and having it done properly. If we're not talking like $5,000, we're talking a lot more than that. I think it's worth it. Sybil says, I hear all kinds of noises with my cochlear implants. Am I saying that right? Yeah, I wonder how those work. I listen, I speak to a lot of people. I feel like over half my people have tinnitus. It's not their main disabling disorder at all. It's like tangential. But it sounds very annoying, very disruptive, very sleep disruptive. And I was like, oh, please don't tell me that's me. From a selfish point of view, I did not want it. But yeah, and I would think the clicking might not be as intrusive as the ringing that some people have. Because I heard it can be really loud. And then, could you get headaches from it? I just feel really for people with tinnitus. Heather says, I know you're super busy and we're away the past week. I just want to let you know that I sent you an email after your last live week. Yeah, I think I saw something. Did you guys, was there a response sent to you asking a question or no? I think there was. I think she said something. I'm back as of this morning. I will be looking, okay? I promise. And definitely feel free to nudge me with an email. I see all of them eventually. So even if it's to, Liz or assistant, no worries there, okay? Sybil Chick says, medically they were having so many breakthroughs and cures. Yeah, and I think it's going to be, I think it's great. I think with technology, and I hate to say it, AI, I know that scares a lot of people. I think it's going to go on at a much more rapid rate, the discoveries, because now there's assistance with the absorbing everything, and why not have, it might take some scientists 3 years to mesh that information and come to that conclusion, yet this assistant over here could do it in 3 days, and then they're going to be reviewing it anyway. So does this make sense? Oh my gosh, look at this, So I think there could be something to that there, Sybil. Heather says, also, I have a letter arriving today from the SSA. However, it's addressed from my local field office, not ALJ office. Could my local office be who I'm dealing with until hearing? Not typically, no. I'm trying to think. What would they be? About late in the day. I don't know. We'll talk. Okay? No worries. Candy Brown. Hello, ALJ hearing for SSDI will be the grid. Will the grid be used? The grid is always considered. It's part of the law of determining if you're disabled or not. So don't worry about that. what you should be doing is making sure you fit the grid. You know, like your evidence shows that this job, this is disproven, this is disproven. Oops, this is disproven. Ah, there's the win right up here. So you want to make sure your evidence steers that needle to that award. You know. For 3 hours a day, working will be a problem. My earnings are low. My attorney is aware of this. I'm sure your attorney probably would have said something if you thought it was a problem. 3 hours a day, it's very part-time. What is that, 15 hours a week? To me, that's like a golden number. You know, assuming the pay wage is well under SGA. So, and you got an attorney, so I'm sure you're going to be just fine. Candy says our hearing is tomorrow. Oh. Did you have a ALJ hearing prep conference yet? Sometimes we do them the day before, usually 2 days before, because I like to have that little day gap so they can think about things and I can think about it. And just never know if something's going to pop up. And then we also speak about a half hour before the hearing. Hey, DJ Kenny's in the house. Hello, pal. It's been a while. Hello, my phone hearing went well. Yay. I've checked the Social Security website and the DOJ. You mean ALJ? Oh no, you mean I don't think it's a DOJ. Seemingly completed the review a few weeks ago. About 15 days after the hearing, it says the final step. A representative in Portland. You didn't get a letter though yet, huh, DJ? A representative in Portland, Oregon started a final review to make sure that you still meet the non-medical worker. Interesting. I forget if you have an attorney, but if you did, your attorney can go on the electronic Records Express and see if there's a decision. It sounds like there's a decision. So, which, I know we get these non-medical review messages, DJ, when someone's on initial and recon, even if they lost. It's ridiculous. I think it's very poor messaging. However, I'm not sure I see that for denials from an ALJ office. I don't want to say that for sure, but I feel like we don't get them then. They might see it in their portal though. That's what you saw, right? Get your attorney to just go there and grab the decision. If the decision is made, it's going to be up there. You can get it like, I could get it for you in 5 minutes if I was your attorney, but I'm not, so I can't. But I think you said you have one, so just, I'd give a buzz and be like, can you go up there and see? Jax is in the house. Hi, Jax. SSDI since 2012, 66 years young, no CDR since 2014. You're 66, too. Not been to any doctor since 2020 because all they offer is pay meds. I've had addiction problems. It's the problem at this point. I don't think it's going to be a problem because you're 66. But if this was 2021 and you were asking me, I'd be like, get to a doctor. Even if you don't take the pain meds, just still go. Because then you'll have the Medicaid evidence. They can't force you to take the pain meds. Will it look like you don't have a lot of pain if you don't? Possibly, but you have a very good reason. You have addiction problems. And opioids, you know, or narcotics are, we all know. So it could be the mere complaining to a doctor and showing up for appointments. It could be that you maybe here and there you do a little course of PT. Sometimes they have injections, which are not going to make you addicted. So there are other things. But now it's 2026. You're breathing down full retirement age. I don't think it's going to be a problem. They're not going to give you a CDR right now. If you go and you work suddenly over SGA, yeah, you're going to get your butt kicked for that. So don't do that. You know, I think you're okay, Jax. But I'm glad you didn't approach me in 2021. I would have been like, come on, son, you have to do, you cannot do that. Because they could have given you a CDR. And you know, if you're independently wealthy and it doesn't matter, then that's fine. But if you're not and you rely on your insurance benefits that you've worked and paid for, you know, 7X, wow, 1 year, 2 weeks, still in reconsideration. Some people, Now, have you been in recon for the whole year and 2 weeks? Or you're saying you did initial for 6 months and now you're in 6 months of recon? The latter is kind of not that big of a deal as much as it's frustrating. But if it's a whole year and 2 weeks in reconsideration, is there an adjudicator working on it? Did it take forever to get one? Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it could be like, that state is really short, they just haven't hired enough adjudicators, and, you know, you're in the queue with 50 million people ahead of you in that state, whatever state you live in, and waiting. And I would, to be honest with you, 6 months, I would, if there's no adjudicator, I would have already contacted my congressperson to ask them to poke the bear. And because they are state workers, I might even tap the state representative. Normally we talk about federal, but you know, in that particular instance, I'm just thinking this off the cuff right now, they might have significant influence because they are state-related representatives, not federal. Federal's very important for the federal side of it, but now you've got the benefit of both, so. Jax says, failed back surgery and not a candidate for a redo. Yeah, that blows, Jax. I'm sorry. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I really don't. I like your smiley face, by the way. Heather Shante says, tinnitus is definitely a gift from the devil. Oh, sounds like train brakes squealing some days, ringing some days, but it's like you're in a torture chamber just testing how long it takes to scream. Oh. You are a trooper, Heather, truly. Yes, Liz asked if my hearing was scheduled yet. I filed the 9th and today's mail. Oh, okay, good. So you don't have a scheduled hearing for sure. Okay. We'll talk. I'm going to be, except for my PT every morning, I will be here, plugged in through Saturday. And probably every day thereafter. But I just know I have that. I plugged in these 3 PT visits because I missed a whole week. I had 3 jammed in before I went, so it would cover me for the week, and then I have to do the other 3, and it's torturous, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, DJ says, oops, oh no, that's Sybil. Sorry, Sybil. Sorry, DJ, I just bumped you. DJ says, thanks, I'm a wreck. I hope it's clearly done and approved. Fingers crossed for you. You deserve this, for sure. And thanks for sharing it here. Let us know the results. And it definitely, fingers crossed for you. I think you're in good shape, if I recall. I think so. Civil check. I have an adjudicator that I've never spoken to. I've talked with the adjudicator's boss. Oh, really? That's funny. Okay, we're getting down to the end here, guys, which is fine, because now we're at an hour and 35 minutes. Russ says, thank you from all of us. You're welcome. And, yeah, you had kind of some different questions today, Russ. They weren't about how to prevail and the evidence. It was about how to protect, you know, what you have. And the family that is very good to you. DJ says, you've helped me ease some anxiety the 1.5 years while going through this. Thank you for what you were doing. It's been a hard road, like for many others. Yeah, it is. And I always try to remind people and myself, any of these things can happen to any one of us. And any one of us that it hasn't happened to are very fortunate. And then, others of us, less so. And that's true of other things in life too. Like, my misfortune may be in other areas that have nothing to do with this, and vice versa. But, you live with this every single day, and then, it's not just the body or the mind not working with us the way we would have hoped, right? But the financial strain that comes with it. And because we all have to eat. So, it's my heart is definitely with all of you. DWS says, I was recently approved for SSI. Letter says review in 5 to 7 years. Okay, that's a mine. Medical improvement not expected, I think there, DW. What am I to do in the meantime as far as doctor visits? So far, doctor just refilled my medications. I'm an amputee, not much chance. How old are you? Well, okay, I want to tell you something about amputations, okay? A lot of times those are temporary disabilities. Not that you're not impaired without whatever body part, but it's the reason why amputee, even multiple amputated limbs, is not an automatic win. It's because people get prosthetics now. Technology has made it, a lot of people, as you know, with prosthetics work full time. Then there's plenty that the prosthetics do not work for. So that's, and then so, if I have like an amputee client, and I've had my share, I don't think I have any right now. I don't think. I don't just delve. When they're young people, I almost have no choice because this is their only problem. And I'm trying to think, was everybody young? I don't think everybody was young. But for other people, and even young, I'm like, is that your only health problem? Your only physical or mental gripe is this, this very pained, amputated limb, or whatever the case is. And usually, we're all human, and if we're over the age of 30, usually we got something else going on too. It's just, the deterioration, of aging, say. So, I mean, you go to your PCP. There's a reason why your amputation resulted in disability when others would not. So you need to figure out what that is. And medications, I don't know which ones you're alluding to. Are they pain meds? Are they, what exactly are they? DW, you just clarified more here. 57. All right, that's good. And you're on a mine, you said. So maybe just continue doing what you're doing. You don't have to be, you can't, it's not going to grow back your limb, right? So you're like this, it's not like it's curable. But what is it about your limb that, and I don't think you have to worry like a 40-year-old would because of your age. And you're on a mine. And right there, that's very helpful information because assuming it's 5 to 7 years from now, you're going to be of retirement age, at least early retirement, probably by the time they would CDR you. And to be honest with you, at that point, they might just do a pass. So you're on that. It's there technically because it has to be, but it might be like, that's a pass. That's a pass, So, and if someone has mental health issues on top of it, if you had other things, that all is taken into consideration too. But the biggest, I think, sign is that diary of 5 to 7 years, the mind. I think so. That's bigger, almost than the fact that it's an amputation, TW. Because, like I said, if suddenly, let's say it was an not unhealing, but constantly irritated, none of the and there are plenty of people like that. And then eventually it's fine. You got a new protocol and it works and da-da-da. You could easily be not disabled anymore from all jobs. So they said mine now, so that makes me think there's something else going on that they don't think it's going to improve. Maybe it's the duration, 7X says, I have an attorney, lots of medical evidence that backs my claim and getting ready for surgery on my spine. Number 4, initial app, October 2024. And you're still on recon. It sounds promising. 7. I don't remember your vocational. How old are you? DW says, yeah, I have lymphedema in my legs. There you go. Yeah, it's not just a missing limb, right? It definitely complicates. It's almost like your skin is compromised, right? And other health problems. I think you're fine. Just keep going to the doctor. If there's medications related to all these things, keep taking them. Keep complaining. Maybe keep that little journal about leg swelling and how often you have to elevate, just for later. But I don't think you're necessarily going to have to use it. I'm just very cautious because, again, unless we're all millionaires and we don't, Speaking of millionaires, how about that 800 and something million won by one person in Florida? Imagine that. Seven is, how do I know if I have an adjudicator? Adjudicator, did you get a function report request? Do you get any letters from the adjudicator? Ask your lawyer. Sometimes you just gotta speak up, you know, ask the questions. Heather says, I heard you answer someone about timeline. My recon denial was 1 year and 9 months after I initially filed. So you had an initial file and then a recon denial in 1 year and 9 months, which is quite a long time. So they are moving. Some professionals just move like sloths at times. I know. This is true. And some people, believe it or not, that slowness of the system is what helps them win their case. So never forget that, guys. Sometimes we want to hurry up to get the, and then we lose our time period we could have been building our evidence. All right. 7X is 56. I think you're probably good with all those back surgeries. It's probably been properly, you know, medically treated and follow-ups. You have a surgery coming up again. You've already had some. I know. I remember that. You told me. And you're in that age category where they, you know, it's an easier weave to get there. So I think you're going to be fine. They just have to get there. And I think when they give awards, they're very meticulous to make sure it's going to hold water and not get overturned on federal quality review. So there is that. Danielle says, oh, Danielle, sorry. I believe it's Danielle. It could either be Danielle or Daniel LeBaker, right? I'm thinking it's Danielle. I have a claim for SSDI. My conditions are plantar fasciitis, depression, bipolar, PTSD. What are my chances of approval? I have no idea. It goes far more than what those things, you know, what you listed. Can those things produce a person who can't do any job, even a simple sedentary, don't have to be on your feet, don't have to deal with the public, don't have to deal with stress? Supposedly, there are jobs like that. So have you, you know, can you prove that you can't do those? You know, no coworkers to deal with. So you have no lawyer and you're on initial application. Your age is a big factor. If you're young, you have to prove all 12,000 jobs. So you have to get cranking on what that means if you're self-representing. Know what your legal battle is, you know, before you know, throw darts at blindfolded, because you don't know what you're going for. You don't know how to meet those laws if you don't know what the laws are that apply to you. You know what I'm saying? And keep treating for everything. That's the single most important thing, I would say. Heather Shante, I'm having a decent day, so I'm just listening while being productive around the house. Oh, good for you. It's one of your up hour sessions, huh? Where you have to go rest. Well, I'm glad you stopped in. That's really super nice there, Heather. I think we're through our questions, guys. It's almost 2 hours. Anybody have any more they want to pop in? I'm happy to take them for the next at least 15. But if not, I've got some follow-up work to do. So I don't see any. Thank you guys for coming, as always. I will be here next Wednesday, same time. And I will say, I'm just going to throw it out there in passing. I will be having to move in August. Let's see. We'll be moving it one of the August dates. I won't cancel it. I'll just move it to probably the Friday. Yeah, probably Friday. That would be the middle of the month. The 19th, I'll have to move to probably the 21st. Am I getting that date right? 15th? Yeah, probably to the 21st. I'll figure it out. We're going to be away, and it's not that I couldn't do it where we're going. I'll be in Jersey on a family trip, but I don't know if I would be distracted. I'd just rather be here when it's not distracting. Alright, so just a heads up on that, but that's a few weeks away, so you don't have to worry about it. Thank you, AFet. You have a good rest of your day also. Dana Jesus is in the house. Oops. Dana says, I've been told that an attorney won't represent me because I'm getting sick. I'm getting sick of, I don't even know what that means, Dana. Sick of 901. Can you clarify? And who told you that? And what does getting sick of 909/01 mean? I mean, you're not talking about 9/11, right? Social Security, Dana, told you that attorney won't represent you? That last part, I don't understand what you mean. Anybody? Anybody have a clue? An attorney won't represent me. No, you're saying yeah, but that doesn't really tell me. I'm getting sick of... You're getting sick of 9/11? Well, yeah, we were all pretty sick of that horror show. Like, don't let it happen again, right? But I don't know what you mean, my dear. I'm sorry. AFET says September 1, 2026. Well, what I'm not understanding... Oh. You're getting Social Security as of this coming... Okay. So what this means is, did you already file? When was your onset date? Remember, you can never get more than 12 months of benefits before your onset date. I'm sorry, before your application date. There's no retro prior to that. So it really depends on... and when you're getting Social Security, is that going to be your full retirement benefit, or are you collecting early retirement? Are you choosing to collect early retirement? And therefore, there's not going to be back benefits for which the attorney to get paid. At least from September 1st, they won't be building like they would otherwise build while he's working on the case. If you already filed, let's say you already filed. Let's say you filed in June, and you said, I've been disabled for 2 years since June of 2024. You could feasibly, if you could prevail, if you were really vigorously going to getting medical treatment for all your impairments up until during that whole time period, the 2 years, and you could win back to 2024, you would get paid from 2025 to the present. And there would be back benefits from, it would be like 14 months of back benefits. Yeah, because the 5 months would be counted before then, the waiting period. 14 months, the attorney gets 25%. I mean, it's not impossible, but everything in your case would have to be perfectly beautiful. Like, you have to have, like, hey, with proper workup, she's almost assuredly going to win. It can't be one of those, no one's going to want to take it for a pro bono. I think they try to save those for the people that don't have retirement to fall back on. Sometimes they save them for the people who are, don't have family that can, support them. Like you have to kind of determine who you can give pro bono to, because free hours are limited. I mean, even paid hours are limited because we only have so many hours in a day. Time is not something we can, mass produce. But so and you decided, so Dana decided to take early retirement, it says here. She has, I mean, there's a limited pot. Now, you could do something where you come up with a $9,200 retainer, you give it to, an attorney will be willing to do it. They will do a fee petition, they will not be relying on the 25% contingency option. And then they will just show all the work and say, Judge, we have the $9,200 sitting in the account. I did $12,000 worth of work. Can I collect at least the $9,200, and that's all I'll charge her. And that could work. So if you have that, that could work. But are you going to really want to do that when you can only get 12 months worth of back benefits? And you haven't filed yet. So I could see why that would be a little, And your Social Security is $12.55 a month. Okay, so that is on the low side. Hold on, I gotta scroll up because I was jumping around with Dana. Good to see you though, Dana. I'm glad you're getting something. The early retirement is killing it. If you were deciding not to do the early retirement, you might have a better chance. But since you're kind of eliminating that. Heather says, my birthday is the 14th. Are you coming to Maryland for a surprise visit? Joking, joking. Yeah, no. If I were going to go on a fun trip, for no reason except a fun trip, it wouldn't be Maryland, number one. First of all, there's certain things I can't bring with me when I go to Maryland, so, you know, I pick my states accordingly. But also, I did go to Maryland to the week of Thanksgiving, before Thanksgiving, with my daughter and my mom, to see my mom, who was visiting from Minnesota, because she moved from my house to Minnesota, and she was down there visiting her grandkids, and my sister came, you know, she was my sister, so they all came down to see my sister's kids, so we drove down, because it's drivable, you know, 3-4 hours, and that was really nice. It was really nice. The Airbnb was a nightmare. Story for another day. But we stayed in just to have a place to sleep, so we didn't have to, like, cramp their house. That's a whole nother story. Virginia says, does a journal help with a disability case of your illness? Because I started 3 months before I filed disability, and how is that shown and to who? It depends what you say with it. It depends what kind of journal it is. Some I think can be really helpful. If it's talking about your symptoms, I think that's be something that you could, assuming you don't have 500,000 pages, but you have them, you know, maybe shrunk onto, like, so it's, you know, abbreviated. Your doctor, he might not even want to look at it, but if you fax it in, I wonder if it has to be put in the record, and therefore it's going to be produced when the SSA orders the records. We use them a lot, not so much down below, because their check boxes don't necessarily include personal journals, so it wouldn't have a lot of, if any, meat. But I do use them sometimes with showing the ALJ what the journal says from the last 2 years, and I usually do a little summary in the front, so the ALJ doesn't have to, or his advisors have to go nitpick. They're going to double check me, of course, but I want them to see what the end point is, then go double check me. But, like, this is, you know, if you find her to be credible, then this is what you're going to find, because this is all the days she was in bed with a migraine, you know, for the last 2 years, you know, vomiting, or, you know, not being able to open her eyes for 2 days straight, or whatever. And so if they find the person to be credible, because their evidence is very supportive, and they are otherwise, they don't like to use the word credible anymore, but if what they say is consistent with the records, same idea, I think it can help, because it can give them a little crumb to use if they're so inclined to want to go that way. If not just for persuasion, and then they can find their evidence that they find to be better to solidify an indefeasible decision of award, meaning indefeasible will not be overturned on audit for missing something, I think it's worthwhile. So, doctor's office of the one that, the specialist that treats you for that particular thing you're journaling. And again, he might not want to look at it. They're like that. So no. Ross says, thanks for answering so many questions. Have a great day. You too, Ross. It's my pleasure. I love Wednesdays. Okay. Bill says, initial waiting, 60 years old now, was 59 when I had the surgery. They did send me to an evaluation, which is maybe bad, but the eval told me they didn't have info on my COPD and shoulder. That's right, because they were only evaluating probably your back. COPD, they wouldn't really be evaluating, but the shoulder, they might have in that if they'd known, since it is kind of musculoskeletal. Sent additional. Let's see. Okay. So additional evidence in. Okay, Bill. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of positive evidence in your case, and they're still getting more, so that's good. So yeah, Dana was saying that she's filing for early retirements, and I'm sure it's because you need to. And you know what's unfortunate, Dana? You're filing for early retirement at $12.55 a month. That would probably be what? $1,700 a month? $1,800 a month? $1,900 a month? If you could wait. If you could. And I'm not saying that you necessarily can. If you stopped working suddenly because you have to, and you've run out of money, and you have no options because you simply cannot work part-time. Because my question is, could you work part-time, not file, earn $1,600 a month under SGA, working part-time, and then you have your SSD claim, you're bringing in money, more money than you're going to get here, and this is permanent forever, unless you win your SSD case. Can you work part-time, or can you not? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can or cannot. I'm asking the question, because some people cannot do that. And it's not always easy to find that right job. Dana says, I have to have some kind of income. I would be homeless without it. I'm currently on unemployment. Yeah. So anyway, those are the other options if you're not bedridden. You know, if you're bedridden or close to it, you know what I mean? Where you can't do anything part-time, like you can't, you know, then, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I just hate to see you living on $12.55. You know what I mean? Now, granted, if you win your SSD case, you might be able to bump that up to whatever it should be, right? So, I think you're saying that's the $12.55 if you take early, right? If that's $12.55, if you don't take early, well, then you're down to, like, really low. Like, what, 700? So, yeah, I mean, remember, Dana, you can work part-time, and if under SGA, if you pick the right part-time job and it's not inconsistent with your disabilities while you're claiming, and that part-time job can be more than what you make with retirement, with early retirement. So, I'm not saying you can do that. I don't know what your impairments are, but it's something, you know, if you think you can, it might be worth trying. Because unemployment will run out. Heather says, I hear we have the best Airbnb. Well, don't go to the place that, let's just say, it is a known thing that some Airbnb hosts, maybe it's because they're getting out of the biz, or, well, they have to have a lack of ethics to begin with. And let's just say they might fabricate an existing damage to try to make some money off of their guest who has left. Particularly if their guest was unwise and didn't do the surveillance video and pictures and all that before they came. We've since learned. And I got to tell you, I was not thrilled with the quality of any review, because the evidence was so clearly that this was like old, you know, therefore their claim was fabricated. But I didn't get the impression that anybody actually reviewed the argument that we spent time on and produced. So, and pictures, and pointed out things about pictures, and so I was really disappointed. But I know it's that individual who was just a corrupt individual, in my opinion, and the company itself maybe does not have the best quality review system, you know. It's just a matter of getting it off the plate. So basically, whatever the damage is demanded, let's just split it, make them play half. Like, how about looking at the evidence that shows that this is BS? So we've learned. So now, like, we went to an Airbnb in June. I think I told you guys. It was a big old farmhouse. It was amazing. And unfortunately, we had to spend the first half hour. We had plenty of people. Everyone taking their pictures and videos. So not only do you have a lot of videos, you have and pictures, you have a lot of people who would be witnesses to, I took this one, you know, to see what's existing already. So you have proof when you come in of what's existing. And then when you leave, you videotape that it's perfectly nice, you know, just the way we found it, you know. Let's see. Mohawk says, I'm 100% VA TDUI. It took me 7 years to get my SSDI after finally hiring a lawyer on my 3rd try. I always say hire that lawyer. I know people don't want to do it sometimes, but I definitely think it makes, I know for a fact it makes a difference. Backdated to 2018, never give up. Thank you for what you're doing. Helping us to save us. That's a long time it took you. 7 years. I'm glad you prevailed. And I'm impressed that it was backdated to 2018. You said 3rd try. I don't know if you mean like by the time I had to go to an ALJ, like that's your 3rd try. That's actually still your first application. Or did you get fully denied? Had to reapply all over again. Not that it matters, because it looks like they reopened the old ones and gave you that initial application all the way back to 2018. That's sweet. That's really good. Doesn't always and often happen, guys, so don't rely on it, but it's good. We always try it when it's possible. Mohawk says, sent me to a psych eval, mental eval. I think it said new and material evidence that connected me back to 2018 after the medical eval. Okay. Well, you must have had some good evidence, plus the VA provided a bunch of evidence, and they didn't just find you PNT, they found you TDUI, right? Still seeing painage management. This is Bill. PT, pulmonary, I have a rotator tear, and I'm on doctor-directed weight loss program, 60 pounds so far. Good for you. Good for you. Obstructive sleep apnea, and now shrinking obesity. Yeah, that helps. I don't think it's gonna hurt your case at all just because you're losing weight. Like my obesity won't be considered as important. It won't matter. Obesity can help, but I don't think when you have all these things going on, plus I think your age, you said you were 59 to 60. LTD insurance payments applied when LTD approved. Okay, you're probably going to have an offset. You probably know that, right? LTD. Virginia says, thank you so much for answering my questions. May God bless you. Have a great one, Chica. You too, Chica. Bill says, feel so lucky to have LTD. Nervous, yeah. Thanks for all your help. You are very welcome. Then we have, shall not be infringed. Yeah, speak it to me. Do you still have to wait 5 months if you win to get paid, or did Congress pass the new law? Well, first of all, there was never a law that said you had to wait 5 months. What the law was, and still is there is a 5-month waiting period after you become disabled, even if it's in the past. Like most insurances have that gap time that you're not owed benefits to. I think unemployment has it like for 1 week, and I think other things have it for X amount of time. So this one happens to have 5 months. It still exists. And what I think shall is speaking to is there's always bills trying to change things, but they want to get rid of the 5 months. Now, of course, if they get rid of the 5 months, they're going to eat up a lot of the Social Security disability funds that everyone here is always worried about. So you can't just go take money and then just, hey, we're going to just give people more. So one of the and I haven't read the bill. One of the proposals, I think, was let it be an option. Do you want to, in retrospect, that 5 months from before, do you want to have that 5 months now, even though that normally would have been foregone, or do you want to keep it foregone? Because if you take it now, it's going to come out of your own. See, when we pay in the insurance premiums, we all accumulate a certain amount of benefit. No more, no less. We each have, whatever we paid in is what we are going to get out. It's an amount that derives from there. So if you're going to take now more from your pots that you've accumulated per month, it's gonna, let's say I want to take an extra 5 months, those 5 months. You will, and it's a very small amount to pay those 5 months. So I think it's not going to hurt a lot of people if they need that 5 months. They might, because they might have some bills that they didn't pay. You know, we're not unable to pay, they're not working. And they're like, yeah, I could use that extra $8,000 to knock off this bill. You know. So like your benefit might go down 2%. That 2% skimming off the top to get you the 5 months paid now. You follow? So your overall benefit payment will be a little less if this is the proposal that they're thinking of, because it's going to have to be a net zero loss, right? It's got to be change the law, but don't make Johnny pay for shall not be infringed. Don't make Johnny over here pay for shall not to have an extra 5 months of benefits. Shall not, if he wants to take 5 months out of his pot that he's paid into all these years, let's let him do that. You know, and this is how it will be done. It's not, if you think of it like early retirement, we could take early retirement instead of waiting 5 years, the 5-year gap, right, to 67. If we decide to take it 62 or any time between 62 and 67, we have a reduced amount. And that's because we are skimming off of our own pot to bring us this extra 5 years, 60 payments if we take it 62. Someone's got to pay for those 60 payments. You don't want your neighbor paying for it for you, right? That would be horrible. So you pay for it. And this is a way to do it that's with the least pay. Now, when you take it at 62, because it's not 5 months, it's 60 months, it is a huge reduction. It's like 30 to 35% reduction. I mean, we were just talking to, who was it? I forget her name. Sorry, no offense. There's just so many names. Dana. That taking early retirement, she's taking a big, huge hit. $1,255, which might be, I'd have to do the math, but it could be $1,800 or more. Maybe even $1,900 if she could wait. But she knows I need it now, so they're going to, you know, the only way to make that money last her whole life, her statutory expected life, is by making each payment smaller. And you can get more now. You can take them early, but they're going to be smaller. It just makes sense. It's called math, right? So I think the same is true with the 5 months. And the wonderful thing about the 5 months is that it won't reduce you that much. You're not going to be dropped down 30, 35% like Dana's had to do. It'll be a couple percent. Maybe, you know, something like that. So I always like when there's options, as long as the person making the choices is the one that pays for them. If you're going to make your neighbor pay, I'm not really into that. So if you want to reduce something here for yourself by gaining something here, then if it works under the law, I think it's fine. So I don't know that they've passed any law to it yet. Actually, I know they haven't, but I wouldn't be minding if they did. If it's something, like I said, no net loss. You can't be taking other people's money out of the Social Security Disability Fund, because everyone else put their money in there too. Jen says, hi Stephanie, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you too, Jen. So I randomly got a letter in my SSA portal. It was from ALJ to my lawyers. Apparently they finally received a record they had left the file open for, but that time had passed. So she was saying she would like to add it to the file and was giving my lawyers an op to add any notes if they want. It's like a 700-page file. Was there 10 days. That was kind of encouraging. Okay, yeah, Jen, that's called a proffer, P-R-O-F-F-E-R. When they get new evidence after the hearing, they proffer it. We're going to put this in the record, but that opens up the door for you to complain about it or maybe submit a brief. I think even sometimes you can potentially ask for a supplemental hearing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But you could definitely respond. You know, you can add an argument to it like, oh, by the way, that 700 pages is about a totally different person. Imagine if you saw that. So they have to leave it open for, you know, any kind of objection, or maybe it changes the argument. Maybe it strengthens the argument. Shal says, also, I just found out I have severe retinopathy. Oh no, less than 2 months before my hearing. Is that enough time for the judgment? You haven't even had your hearing yet, so he hasn't even made a decision. You go get that stuff now and you get that in. I assume you have a lawyer, right? Absolutely get that in. Severe retinopathy? For sure. Do we have any kind of blindness going on with it? Get it in now. It's on you to do it. You could also call and talk to the assistant and say, hey, I just found out, I just went to a doctor and there's going to be new evidence here. You can ask them, do you have a relationship with this doctor office for HITMER, where they can automatically order them quickly, or do I need to order them? Remember they asked for your 827, SSA 827? All right, that's enough. That was so that they could order records. So if you're unrepresented, I mean, it might be just as easy for you to get them. I don't know, so you'd have to find out. But I would call them and tell them that this is coming up. I would, because that's something significant, you know, and particularly if it's completely different from what you had before. And it's like a whole new severe thing. It's definitely, remember, they give you up to 5 days before the date of your hearing, 5 business days. It's called the 5-day evidence rule, to get in your evidence for hearing. If you don't get it in time, you might be out of luck of having it considered, unless you told the judge within 5 days, this is missing, or this, I have this appointment tomorrow, it'll be before the hearing, but I won't have the evidence obviously within the 5 days. Can you please leave the hearing open for me to get it? If you can't otherwise, give me a fully favorable. I could put that in it. But you want to make sure you've got your ducks in a row. 2 months is plenty of time. Plenty of time. We're getting all our last updates that whole time period, you know? So I would get that in. That sounds very, very important. Kindness is key says, it's 3:11, guys. We're after the 2-hour mark, just so you know. 63 years old, was awarded on the first attempt for SSDI. My sheet says no future exam until I am 67 years old. Does it say 67 or does it say 4 years? Because usually it says 3 years, or I might say 3 to 5, and 5 to 7. I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it. You don't even have. You're not even scheduled. They're not even scheduling you for CDR. By the time they do, you're gonna be 67. The only thing I would not do is, you know, is work SGA. That would be what I wouldn't do. You know, because that can trigger a work-related review. That would not be the diary review. It's one that's triggered by your work. So I think you're good there. Kind. What does one do to protect themselves not touching? Yeah, I think you're good. You need to go and enjoy your golden years. You know what I'm saying? You only have one set. We have to try to get the best we can out of them. Sindig says, level your live streams. Oh, thanks, Sindig. Hopefully, maybe we'll have Judge John on here soon. We're working on it. Shao says, okay, thank you. I haven't heard anything about it in a while. I was wondering if it went anywhere. Well, you know, they take so many vacations, Congress. I'm sorry. They're all, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. They're all pathetic. Almost all of them, not all of them. Some of them are very hardworking and always darting around doing stuff. And others are only darting around, I don't know, making strife. And some are sitting on their butts. So, I don't know. I don't know. We could all talk about term limits, and we won't, but the question of, should they be allowed to, like, shouldn't they be there 5 days a week, first of all, instead of 2.5? And how about you get 2 weeks a year vacation like the rest of the world? I don't understand that. And how about your salary is what the average salary in the United States is for full-time work? Look at that. I don't know. That's just me, guys. Shao says, yes, I have a lawyer. Yes, I have a terrible peripheral vision. I was just wondering if my doctor had it. Well, you're going to have to ask. You can call the OHO. Now, if you have a lawyer, I would go through the lawyer. But if you don't, call the hearing office. They're going to get you to the judge's assistant. You're not supposed to be the judge. And just say, I just want to make sure that so-and-so doctor sent this up. Now, if they didn't know about it, who requested the doctor to send it up? If you didn't, and the judge doesn't know about this retina thing, then how would they know? So you need to be on top of it. It's on you. It literally is on you. Weird sounds out there. Boom, boom. I don't know what's going on. It's made the dogs all freaky deaky. Right, Tasha? Hi, Tosh. She's sleeping. Heather is reminding me it's after 3 p.m. I know. I just hate to close it up when there's things in here. Even though some people come late and post very late. Shao says, it's so hard to get in to see specialists these days. It took me 8 months. Yes. All right, that's enough. Did you hear what I said before, Shao, about... All right, why don't you get out? Scram. Ooh, turn this upside down. Hold on, guys. Come here, baby. All right. Get out. I found I let the dogs out, but Luku was trying to get out, and she tries to climb out, and she this is Fiona. She's very sweet. She went on my trip with me because you got something on your eyeball, honey. She I don't want to leave her in here for what just happened. She flips over. I've always heard that a tortoise, she's a tortoise, right? South American. They can die if they're left upside down, you know, and they can't flip over, and they have a hard time flipping over. So I bring her with me, and she's a free roamer. Yeah, what I was saying before, Shal, is that 8 months to see the optometrist. I think we should all do this. When we walk out of a specialist's office, we make our next appointment before we leave. We go right to that reception and say, yeah, I just want to make the next appointment. If they resist, maybe talk to the doctor and say, Doc, I'm not comfortable not having a next appointment lined up. And how about when they cancel you, like a week before your specialist appointment? It's mind-boggling. But you could do that, and then, you know, you can, yeah, I don't know. I mean, specialists, it's really hard. I would always have one lined up. But, I mean, you got yours in, so, I mean, you got the visit in and the results, so that's good. Jen says, yes, the proffer letter says that if the ALJ wants another hearing, they can add another one. I think, technically, the attorney could too. That record for me is the same as all the others, just worse. Well, that's what you want. I mean, not you personally, but your case, right? Probably the longest, and they were transferring me to a treatment center. Okay. Well, there you go. Very important. I'm glad you got it in. Or, yeah, that they got it. La Rocha says, hey, Stephanie. Hi there. Haven't seen you all day. I was wondering if you could give me tips on what I should expect for my hearing. It's approaching really soon in just days. I don't know your case. I have a video. Might be a little dated by now, but it's largely the same. That kind of tells you what to expect at your hearing. Maybe go listen to that. It's probably under like ALJ hearing or something like that playlist. Otherwise, it would take me 40 minutes to say what to expect, and you know, I know when I do my hearing, you know, pre-hearing conferences, I go through what the general process is and the general areas they're going to want to go over. We go over whether or not if the judge brings it up, is a amended onset date reasonable? Should it be considered? Should it be agreed to? If they wanted to adjust the onset date and then give you an award. So that's something to look at beforehand, so you already know your answer. What else? Is your work history super, super clear of how arduous your job was? If it's already very clear in there and accurate with all how hard it was, then you probably don't have to do anything, and that will probably be enough so you don't have to spend time testifying to it at the hearing. So I always try to make that done so we don't spend time on that, because I want the time to be spent on my client describing, you know, answers to the questions about his functioning and symptoms. And then we go over, you know, what the vocational expert's going to do. What the judge is typically, because you can never know for sure, but what the judge will typically do in terms of hypotheticals to the vocational expert. And what they are and are not. You know, vocational expert's not telling you what you can or cannot do. They're not talking about you at all. So, anyway. And then how you're likely not going to know the answer. Likely not going to know the answer by the time you get out of there. You're going to have to wait for the decision. But anyway, that's like a little summary. But I do have a more detailed video on that if you're interested. Oh, Heather was translating for the dogs. Yeah, those dogs. Shao says, yes, thank you for the advice. You've been very helpful. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, nice car, by the way. All right, guys, that's all the questions. So we are after 2 hours, 2 hours, 20 minutes. I hope to see you next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Well, it's Eastern time. I don't think it's Eastern Standard right now, right? And that's another law that might get changed, right? We're talking about Congress. What else? 12 o'clock dailies are sometimes snippets of some of these things, along with usually an attached video with more detail, so that if that was a topic that you were interested in, now you've got not just what we talked about at LiveStream, but also an added video that gives more clarity on it. And sometimes they're just a different kind of standalone. But those are the ones that really support the channel. So if you guys take the time to turn those on during your days, that would be great. They come out at 12 each day, but you don't have to watch them at 12. They're pre-recorded. They're not with the live stream. So they're the ones that actually support the channel. The live stream doesn't really do that to the same degree. But I really appreciate being here because, you know, the live stream is up later. So people who wanted to see the whole thing and just hear a lot of banter about Social Security matters, they can do that. And later on, we try to splice them out and just make it smaller sections of more, you know, this is about this particular thing, this section. But anyway, yeah. So if you would like, subscribe, and what was the other thing? Share. Christina, who's not here, unfortunately, usually spells that out all throughout. She's very sweet. I will talk to you guys next week. And you could always, if you have a question, always put it on any video. I get to them eventually. I used to get to them in a couple days. Now it's probably more like a week or two. But I will respond. So, and if it's something that could be a video, I'll probably do a video on it. If not, I'm going to respond to you right there by typing or dictating an answer. Okay? All right, guys. Have a good one. God bless. And here's to your health, improved health, guys. A prevailing claim. And be well. All right? God bless.